Hi, and welcome to today's first session of our Exit Right series, How to Drive Your Business from Start to Exit. So for those of you who have been with us throughout the series, you know that we started right at the end talking about exits, and we have slowly been winding our way back to today, our first session, to talk about product market fit. So please welcome our lovely new speakers for today who will talk to you about product market fit. I don't know which one of you is starting. Phil, you're up first. So please, Phil, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Okay. So, nice post picture of me. Sorry, so I just wanted to introduce myself. So I'm Phil Wakefield. I am the CEO and founder of Oxogen, and I work with startups to help them through those early stages. My background has been quite eclectic. Started off in things like mechanical engineering and ended up at the Olympics, and that got me into software, and that's where I found products and working with startups. And I've been doing that for around 10 years now. And at this stage, working with accelerators and other programs, as also with founders directly to help them on that journey through from taking that idea and finding product market fit. And my perspective on this, I guess, is that is to help founders use the resources they have available to whatever they may be, whether that's sort of bootstrap or doing it on the side, or whether they're a well-funded startup, to use their resources really well to keep making progress all the time in the right direction, because I think that's key to success. And for me, that's all about just being really, learning really rapidly and finding a way to learn and progress on a regular basis. So we're here to talk about product market fit. So we're better define it as much as we can. No, we're not. We are handing over to Mark first. Sorry. Yes, I'll do that.
Cheers, Phil. Thanks, Phil. So I'm here as well. My name is Mark Preston. I'm the CEO, founder of Prismia. I started it with my best friend Andrew a couple of years ago. And what we do is we help companies around their product. So we don't necessarily directly help their product. We are those who are facilitating and helping them around them. We do that in three main areas. We do that in data analytics, helping with the statistics, the large scale processing of the data they have, which is really, really fun. Predominantly work in biotech, so we do a lot of bioinformatics, a lot of statistics around the large data, image data, genetic data. Secondly, we help companies around infrastructure. So when you have your analytics and you've got your data structures coming in and you're doing your science, predominantly in our field, you need to build infrastructure. So you need to build pipelines, automation, cloud, build out from what you're doing from on a laptop or an abacus, depending how old you are, into the cloud and making it really, really up to date to help you scale your business around your core offering, your core secret sauce, whatever you're working on. And the third thing we do is we work around compliance as well. So we help people with GDPR, HIPAA, the American version, or related version, ISO compliance. We write policies and processes to help those. And there's a natural compliance to all of these three things, a natural progression through all of these three things. And a lot of that is essentially around helping companies scale. So we help them focus on their product. We help take all of these things away so they can focus on their product and their expertise, and we help them grow. So Andrew and I have worked at a lot of different places, and this is why we do this, because we've learned from all of these different places how to do this in a wide range of contexts. Andrew, for example, was at Metadata doing clinical trial software for a while. I was at the MHRA writing the regulations and helping on the regulation side on running a wet lab, running a biological lab, and running projects for them, computer projects for them. So we were kind of yin and yang in some ways, in the fact he was being regulated and I was a regulator, which made for interesting conversations in and around talking about families and everything else that we talk about, because we've known each other for decades. Other interesting ones here. So people always ask me about Disney. No, I wasn't dressed up as Mickey Mouse. That was a really large-scale data project. We've done a lot of work at universities and Syngenta and lots of sort of large biotech companies as well. That's our individual backgrounds, which is why we came together to do this and work together. We have a growing list of companies that we're working with. We generally work in and around bioinformatics, as I say, in biotech companies. So we're looking at diagnostics companies and companies taking products to therapeutics to clinical trial. We also work in and around the biotech space in environmental work and everything like that as well. That is a growing list of companies, and I want it to be as big as the other one in a few years' time. We're on our way there. We're on our way there. But what's also interesting is we're developing a product to help lab scientists as well. So we're helping lab scientists with a universal biotech app. So we're in this product market fit space as well ourselves. So we do the consultancy for these companies, and we're really good fun speaking to all these companies and learning about their science. But we're also trying to help them with a product. So we're actually doing the product market fit ourselves, which is interesting. So we've got a 3 form factor product that we're going to release hopefully later this year. So that's us. That's myself and Phil. I'm going to talk to you today. We come from slightly opposite ends of the spectrum about how we believe on this, so hopefully there'll be some interesting conversations to be had. Over to Phil to talk about product market fit.
There we go. So yeah, we need to try to define product market fit, because it can be a bit of an unknown. It's quite a hard thing to nail down. I think it's there's no measure of product market fit. There's no point where we can have a universal sort of tick mark to say we've got it. It's all very individual to all our startups, all our organisations. But there are some rules of thumb that we can learn, and you can kind of get a feel for when product market fit happens if you really sort of take notice of the data around you. So the product market fit is when is finding the right market with the right product. And there are 2 levers there. There's the product lever and there's the market lever. And we often come at these from different perspectives. Sometimes we come from a tech perspective, where we've sort of come from that tech background and we believe that there is a solution here for somebody, and you're more searching for that market. Or it's probably more common route is that they've identified a market who has a problem and they're trying to find the solution. But actually, in both scenarios, you need to refine both these levers, both market and product. It's the market, you need to find the right niche, and you need to be able to articulate it to them in the right way. And the product needs to adapt to actually meet the needs of those, meet the needs of the users in that audience. So what we're trying to do when we're trying to define product market fit in our organisation is look at the data we have available to us and understand, is that showing that we are providing some value to some users, or are we providing lots of value to the market? That's the sort of the inflection point of product market fit. So we can look at our quantitative data, the data of how users are actually using our products, to see if we're getting that. A product before product market fit can show some growth with some users, but when we're hitting product market fit, you'll see that increase of growth. And that growth could be acquisition of new users. It could be you're retaining people for longer. People are valuing your product so much that they're staying there and using it in the long term. Or you could see that sort of that referral, that word of mouth is spreading because people love your product so much. They know other people have the same problem and they're talking about it and sharing it with other people. And that's also bringing your cost of acquisition down. So you're not fighting so much to get those customers. They're coming to you more easily because you're talking their language, you're understanding their problem, and they want what you're providing. We can also look at this in a more qualitative way. It doesn't always have to be about finding the sort of upward trend on the graph, on the chart. It can also be about talking to your users and asking them, a really great question to ask them is, how would you feel if you could no longer use our product? If the response is lukewarm, they like it, but it's not revolutioning their lives, then you probably haven't quite got there yet. But if you are getting the response back, this is a must-have, our life is it's going to be harder, we lose out if we don't have this product anymore, that's a fantastic sign that you've got product market fit. So I'll skip that slide. There are a few myths around product market fit though. I think it's talked about a lot, and as I say, it's very unique to every organisation. So there's a few things around it that I think need to be cleared up slightly. One is that product market fit is not one day in your organisation's life. It happens over time. It's not going to be wake up one day, I've hit product market fit. You'll see it happening, and you might have an inkling it's happening, but you can only really tell, depending on the pace of your organisation, maybe a month or two into that process. Another is that there's this race to be first in startups. I hear a lot of people who may be working in secret, or they're sort of stealth mode, or they're rushing to get out to the market because they want to be first. But actually, it's not first to market that matters, it's first to product market fit that matters. And if you look at the big organizations that have done really well, they're not the first in their industry, they're not the first to create a solution in that space. They're the first to actually find the right solution for that audience. And that's the same, whether it's Amazon or Google, they've all followed that pattern. The other thing is it feels like a very big milestone, product market fit, and this series has been about the things that happen after product market fit. But sometimes there's this feeling that you're always working towards it. But you do have to think that this is just a point in your journey. Your challenges change at this point of product market fit, but there's not necessarily the end of problems. It's just a new set, as it were, and your focus and things change at that point. But it's not the sort of the big milestone I think that sometimes people think it is. And the final myth that I want to talk about is the people who I think feel they can buy their way out of to product market fit, almost like hire people in and bring in larger teams because they'll get there faster. But the thing about product market fit is it's about experimenting your way to finding it. It's not necessarily about bodies on the ground, as it were, for the team, because then you're burning your resources really fast. Actually, the best thing to do is stay really lean and being able to have a great amount of time and capacity to find that product market fit, and then that's the point where you can grow as a team as your user base is also growing really rapidly. So next, I just want to talk about how we get to product market fit, because we kind of know what it is, but there's a sort of journey you go on from the point of idea to the point where you find product market fit. And I think it's worth to explain that evolution. Because you first of all have to, you have this idea, but you don't know if it's providing any value to anyone yet. So first of all, we create an MVP that can be really, really basic. We're just testing that we can provide value to users. I absolutely, my first recommendation to people is often just build a landing page. Don't build the product yet, just build a landing page, find out if people are interested, and then play around with things like the language and stuff to engage with your audience and find out if that's if that's going to work. And if you're starting to get traction, you've got a good indication that you're providing value. Next, we can start looking at the solution. What is that product, that thing in the box that is actually going to satisfy the audience? And so this is our first release. This is the MVP that really sort of proves the solution. But again, we still haven't got to product market fit. Just because it's in the world and because people are paying for it doesn't mean you've hit product market fit yet. And at this point, your mindset has to change from a value-proving mindset to creating hypotheses around growth and how you're going to grow your user base. And this is really experimental, and it requires a lot of work to try things, to understand what's happening with your users, understand your users, and keep trying things. So a great example of this, I think, is what happened with Yelp. So Yelp was originally a website for companies to request reviews from their customers. But it wasn't growing. It was very, very slow growth. They weren't showing the characteristics of product market fit at this stage. And they started looking into what their users were doing. They were looking into the data. And they spotted that the users there's this one link deep in the footer of the website that they were clicking on. And and that link was just allowing them to give unsolicited reviews to organizations. So rather than the whole concept of people being asked for reviews, actually they were finding that their users were predominantly giving reviews, unrequested reviews, unsolicited reviews. Even though this thing was hidden away, no one had told them about it, they found it and they were using it, and they were using it more than the main functionality. So what they did, they changed their product. They completely scrapped the website, started again, and built a system completely around unsolicited reviews, and that's the Yelp we know today. So they really moved that sort of product lever to try and find product market fit. So that's everything for me.
Cool.
Over to you, Mark.
To me, back over to me. So,
that was the growth one.
so I'm going to talk a little bit now about a specific area of product market fit around the technology. Again, what we do at Prismia is we talk about helping everyone with their secret sauce and all of the areas around that, and how you get there and what you do to find your product market fit, and the methods you use for it are quite important to us. And I'm going to talk about an example in a minute. I'll give Phil a right to reply at the end, actually, because I think he's using the system at the moment. Now, we come from opposite ends of the spectrum. We've had lots of conversations, and I wish I'd listened to Phil more earlier on. And sometimes I'm glad that I ignored him. So all of this works, and you grow and you learn by talking to people and working these things out. So when we're talking about product market fit, we talk about having the time and energy and resources to create a product and iterate it towards that product market fit. And how you do that is limited. You've got your limited resources, your cost and your time and your people and your skills and your domain knowledge around there. And you have to manage all of this around the risk. But there is a reward as well, a little bit up the top there. That's what you're going for in the end. But at the moment, I'm going to be talking about managing the risk. So we mostly work with biotech companies, but actually we're dealing more and more with app companies. So we're talking healthcare apps, but actually wider than that. And a way to do an app is to go with what's called a no-code system. Now, I'm not a big fan of no-code systems, and this will come clear at the end, but that's because that's not my context. So I've got my toy no-code thought experiment here. So a no-code system is one which you don't need any technical expertise to generate that landing page, that first app with that first set of interactions. And that's really cool because you can go fast, and that's a real big advantage. You go fast, you can test all the things Phil's been talking about in the end, experimentation, A/B testing with your users, finding the right language. You can go really, really, really fast. No-code systems, brilliant. But at some point, the no-code system runs out of functionality for you. So on the left-hand graph here, you've got the left-hand top, you've got your, no, I'm a mathematician and I haven't put any labels on these axes. This means that I can get to choose about whatever I want to talk about without limiting myself. So we'll go with what it is. The no-code system is promising the ideal on the left there, where in red line, where it's going to go up really quickly and you're going to hit all the functionality and you're going to be amazing. The reality is you hit a barrier, a functional barrier at some point. And that barrier may come in many, many forms. It may come in scalability. It may come in the size of data you can use. It may come in information security. You've got to have a more secure system than they do. It might come in compliance and regulation. So if you've got a financial app or a healthcare app, it may not be able to support the legal requirements you have around that. And it may just come from the fact that it needs to do more than the no-code system does. Suddenly you want to put a widget in there that does the amazing thing that you're working on, and it doesn't support that for you. And doing the workarounds just takes a lot too much time. So you end up with this glass ceiling, this ceiling on there, this point of inflection where suddenly you hit a plateau. So what's the alternative? Well, I'm going to go from one end of the system with having lots of knowledge about developing IT systems and computer things to the other end of the system, the full system. I might refer to it as full fat, so that's why I refer to it in my head, referring to the milk. But obviously, the full fat system is you have full architecture, you have lots of developers, and you work a system that is built from the ground up. What's the advantage of this? Brilliant, no limit. Andrew, when I speak to Andrew about our product, it's like, brilliant, can I have this? He's like, yes, you can have this. You can have anything you want, Mark. And then he tells me how long it's going to take and how many resources it's going to take. And I go, I'm not sure I want that anymore. But the point is there's no limit. And that takes away what the no-code negativity is. But the growth line is slower. It's much shallower. But it also has more negatives around it. You need more people. You need more time, more money. And these are things that a startup may not have. So it's a trade-off. So the thought experiment about this goes, you're trying to get product market fit using a no-code system. When do you switch over? And what are the impacts of switching over to your company? So at some point you go, brilliant, I've hit my ceiling, I've plateaued on the no-code system. I'm now going to start my full system, my properly developed web stacked system. Brilliant. Well, that's here on the left at the bottom. Well, that's great. I'm going to get this system, but I've got this time lag between my system now and the system where I meet where I'm currently doing and then able to improve it. What does that mean to my users who are expecting this fast turnaround, who've been experiencing this really early adopter, exciting way of working with all of these new functionality coming all of this time? Is that something they're prepared to accept? Investors. They're going to look, it's brilliant, you're growing really, really quickly. At some point, you're going to go, okay, we're going to plateau. Have you figured this into your model, this plateau of return on investment? Is this delay from where you're adding we've got new functionality coming, new functionality coming, new functionality coming, but we're not going to have anything new for 6 months? Are we okay with that? And it's going to cost us a lot more money than a no-code system to develop it. What happens if we get stuck, not being able to get the resources in to build this system for us? What are the other negatives around that? So in bioinformatics, finding bioinformaticians, good bioinformaticians, is like finding hen's teeth. If you're a small company trying to get ahead of bioinformatics, they're even rarer. And you find them, you keep them, you give them long notice periods. So not only have you got to then find someone, which is a good long piece of time to find the people, get them, interview them, interact with all of your recruitment people. You've then got to find the person, make sure the person has the right skills to beat you, to meet with you and work with your team. You've then got to wait for them to be extracted out of their other company. That's pushing your product market fit and your evolution of your product way down the line. What if you started them at the same time? Some sort of pragmatic, actually, why don't we do it at the same time so we minimize that distance? Yes, brilliant, really good. What you're also doing at this point is spending a lot more money and having more people in your team. But what you're doing is you're also mitigating another risk. The risk in the middle model here is that you've got all the domain knowledge in you, in the person who's been doing the no-code system for you. You've got to bring someone on board, and they don't have the domain knowledge that you've learned. All the experiments you've done, the fast-moving experiments, an experiment every day, every 2 days, every week, they're coming in 6 months down the line. They don't have that domain knowledge as well. So the far graph is let's say, a toy problem, but it's about going, actually, maybe we need to bring these people on board at the same time. But there's risks involved in that, and there's costs involved in that as well. So all the time you're making that balance, that pragmatic balance between fast-moving, trying to find product market fit, but also making sure that you can hit your longer-term targets. Because building a company generally goes from stage to stage to stage. And the targets and assumptions you make and build to go to stage 1, you probably need to reassess all of those before you go to stage 2. And the technical part of this, and the technical stack you use, and the technical underpinnings, the infrastructure you use, probably need to be reassessed at each stage. They may be the right ones to continue with, but you probably do need to reassess them. So that's my specific technical thought around the no-code and the fast-moving, and how you balance off your fast-moving product market fit against the technical requirements of your company. Are you going to hit your first target? Are you going to hit seed funding? Are you going to hit 100 users? Whatever your target is the technology building now something you have to throw away and build for next time? And I guess my overall message is it depends on your context. If you're a well-funded startup, brilliant, you might be able to do some of these. If you're not so well-funded, you might need to go with a no-code system. You might need to be more existential around where your money comes from and what time you can do. And a lot of time, you probably need a bit of advice and help around this with the experts who've had the experience around this before, which is where talks like this and the experts in the ecosystem are really, really, really useful on that. So I think that's all I wanted to say around the technical part of the product market fit. Did you want to say anything else more about the no-code? You've got more experience of it. Do you want to give a more positive?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So. Well, I'm building my, so Oxogen's becoming more of a product at the moment. So we're actually building a platform for founders at the moment with Oxogen.io. And yeah, I'm building it in no-code. I think it's a really interesting experience of having to build the product that you're trying to, it's not only your company, but it's your product. You really get a huge amount of ownership and understanding about what you're doing. I think for me, it's an absolute almost no-brainer because it allows me with no external investment to build a fantastic, a really well-rounded platform. But I'm not going for the big. There's no tech challenge here. This is not a tech innovation as such. it's basically it's a type of community and things like that. So there's no real sort of constraint on me there. It's unlikely in the future that I'm going to find a limitation to the no code unless it scales to the extent that it goes beyond what this tool I've used can cope with. But even then, I mean, that would be an amazing problem to have. So when you're talking about sort of, I think, startups in that space, I think where technology is possibly not your limiter, I think it's just kind of like a no-brainer. But you're right, I think there's this, then there's the other extreme where it's sort of a deep tech problem and it can only be done in custom code, where you don't even start in no code. The most you might do is a few mock-ups in Figma to make sure that it looks good, but ultimately it's going to be done in bespoke code. But yeah, it's that middle ground where I think some of those contexts become really important about where do you try things in no code and where do you really sort of go in for the custom is a really interesting balance to get for probably that's a middle 50% of startups actually, and it really does sort of it's a real challenge for people because I think I see a lot of founders stuck, not moving their startup forward because they're waiting for investment, for example, or they're getting ready to pitch for investment and they just stop any kind of development of their idea for 2 months while they prepare their pitch, and then another few months while they pitch to all those investors they're now connected to. And in that time, they could have developed their idea so much further if perhaps they'd gone down the no-code route or something, and therefore they'd be in an even better position to pitch and so on. But equally, you don't want to be in that position where you've just described it with the graph, where you start on that no-code route, you make some traction, but then you just stall because you can't progress. And I think it's, for me actually, just in startups in general, it's trying to avoid that stalling point because it's probably going to destroy you. You're either going to run out of runway, the user base is going to lose faith. So it's trying to keep that progression going, and it's trying to work out what is your balance of technologies. I think through that process, and trying to foresee that potentially coming and get ahead of it.
Agreed.
Right, well, thank you both so much for talking to us about code, no code. Thank you for joining us. I'll go behind you, so I'm not walking right in front of you, but we'll now open up for questions from the audience, both in the room and online. Have we got any questions from the room? Yeah, you need that for the internet.
So, are there some other options to think about? So, for example, the concierge route, which can be a no-code thing, but it could also be we code something deep, but it's designed for engineers, and then we mediate those two by a customer wants a thing, and we run around and make that thing happen without them ever having to see just how glossy it was.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely potential in that. So I spoke earlier about that sort of value MVP versus solution MVP. I think that's the concierge point, is like that movement between those two, where you're trying to understand what users really value and how they work and operate, and you are trying to create that solution for them. And there's this great period, I think there's that period of time where you can put that sort of human in the loop thing, where you have some technology, but you also got humans in that process. I think though you're going to struggle to get to the product market fit point, because that's the point where you're growing so fast, your existing team possibly can't cope, and to hire people in quickly enough to keep that machine running is going to be really tough. So I think it would become a constraint, but I think it's a fantastic point in that journey to go through, because I think you would learn so much about your users, and it's definitely a great MVP point.
Yeah, I think there's to go back to the context, it's what resources you have and how you can use it. So at the time Andrew and I started, Andrew bravely joined me, had moved from his previous job to mine, and he started a week after lockdown started. So we didn't have any clients necessarily at that time to use, and so we used that time to build the full system and build the basis for what we have today, and we used that in that regard, because that was the context we're in at that time, and that was unforeseen. But we reacted to it, and we took it, made it to our advantage, and we have a much stronger position now to scale and grow what we have because of those foundations.
Thank you. Question here.
So this might be out of context for, or out of scope for today's panel, but there's a lot of startups and there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are not dealing in software. So can you translate any of the lessons learned or any of your observations to other physical product entrepreneurs, you know, going into aerospace or going into other sectors beyond software?
I'm looking at you more for that one.
I know I should be able to answer that really easily. I was an engineer once. So I think the context of learning as fast as you can. Now, the nature of like a physical product is it does slow you down, that speed. But there's obviously a lot of technologies now that speed that up with 3D printing and so on. And just having that context of trying to learn about your users as simply and as cheaply as possible so that you can learn quickly, so you can apply that back in and keep doing it as many times as possible. There's this stat, so 9 out of 10 startups fail. But I kind of disagree with that, and I think all startups fail. It's just some keep being able to fail until they win. So it's just only 1 in 10 seems to be able to achieve that at the moment. And I think if you can apply that to a mindset of, I just got to keep learning in whatever that context is. And we talked a lot about technology. I talked about technology in terms of learning quickly and using no code and stuff to do that. I think the same applies in the physical space, but maybe you're 3D printing it in a material that just doesn't apply to the final product, but you're learning as quickly as you possibly can through that process.
I think there's lessons around compliance as well. Getting compliance in early, making the culture of your company, everything is requested and approved, especially in the biotech space when you've got clinical trials and everything, and you need to make sure that that's there. You're going to need to put it in at some point. Doing it early has an overhead, because there is a natural overhead to these things. It costs generally the people doing the work, but has management information, which is beneficial to the company. But it's also a cultural thing about building that in from day one. You end up, everyone comes in and it's just the way it's always done. So when it's 4 people, it's easy to put that culture in. When it's 400 people, it's a lot harder to change people's ways of working. So there are parallels you can probably draw. I might be stretching a little bit compared to this one, but not too bad.
I think that point of culture is really important, actually. Well, no matter what the company is, if you can get that in right at the beginning, it makes your journey a lot easier if you can foresee what type of culture you're going to need.
So as a follow-up, and with Charlie to my left, project management, the big issue is around change management and change control. So can you develop that thought perhaps from a compliance through the development into how you actually keep a handle and a lid and control over the changes, particularly if you're in a no-code where it seems to be experiment until you find something that works? How do you keep the compliance hat on, and how do you keep that change controlled?
With difficulty, with patience, with experience, with external expertise when you need it. I think there's lots of different ways to build that in, and there's a lot of people who have lots of different experience. And when you're building your company, in the biotech space, you've got a lot of people come from academia that maybe don't have as strong that project, program, portfolio experience that someone who's come from industry or maybe government has. And it's about trying to build that in and upskill your workforces. I say potentially the business model of my company is rubbish because we help employ the people who replace us to do what we do, but we get to go and speak to new companies and learn more science and make new friends and go for more coffees. But we upskill the people who are there and we help hire the people in behind us. So it's about finding the right partners to help you grow and fill those gaps that you have in your skills and experience.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think when you're in that early stage and you're sort of trying to find your MVP, you're trying to find your product market fit. If you're not in that compliance space, the change process I think can be much more random. I think what you're trying to do is you're not only trying to create new things that find your product market fit and find what people value, you're also cutting away the stuff that doesn't. So it's not a case of just adding until you've got this mess. But it's more of a sort of, I guess, rather than being a management process, more of a cultural process of, okay, if you're going to, what can you cut away, what can you add to keep everything as lean and as effective as possible?
Thank you. Any more questions from the audience before I hand over to the internet? Great.
Okay, so we've got a question from the lovely Sue Copeland here. So she's saying, knowing what you both know now, when someone approaches you to discuss a new concept, how long would you say it will realistically take to get to product market fit or become commercially viable?
You're looking at me for this one, or are you going to go?
I'll try.
You go. Go.
Okay, well, on the assumption that someone's spending full time, focus on this. I've seen and heard people do this in days if it's a small idea. But if you're talking to somebody where Mark and your team need to get involved, it's not going to happen in days. If there's a lot of compliance and a lot of research that needs doing, then it's going to take. I would say, you can see 2 years is not inconceivable in that time frame, and much longer depending on your resource constraints and things like that. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, in the biotech space, a diagnostic or a therapeutic can take an idea from conception of it might work to that iteration through to being efficient enough to be scalable as a diagnostic, for example, can take a long time. I think it's all down to your context and the resources you can drop on, and the expertise, and how it comes through, what the external requirements are.
Thank you.
Any more? Great. Well, thank you both so much for your time, a very interesting talk, and the questions from the audience. So that wraps up our Exit Right series. Thank you all for coming, both here in person and online. My name's Malin Svanberg-Larsen. I'm a partner in the corporate team at Freight, and together with the rest of the sponsors, the Wood Centre, Barclays Eagle Labs and Oxford Innovation, thank you so much for joining us. We've really enjoyed it. Thank you.